Stephen King's Pet Sematary, about zombieism. You see Pet Sematary. There was an old Indian burial ground that was near this house that a new family had purchased. It was man, wife, little boy who was like a toddler, maybe about 4 or 5 years old. And then they had a black cat. I want to zero in on this black cat too and highlight the fact that this black cat's name was Church. Church. I think they nicknamed it short for Winston Churchill, I think. But either way, a black cat named Church, because there is a white church and a black church. And I don't mean that in terms of cultural designation either. I mean in terms of left-hand path and right-hand path. There is a such thing as the black circle from Cersei. This is where you get the word church from. But Pet Sematary, the cat dies. They bury it up there on the what was called ancient burial ground, where all the pets were buried at. Cat comes back to life. You got the whole reincarnation energy. So you want to be careful, because the black path, or the left-hand path, or the black church, and I don't mean the black church meaning black Afro-American either. The black church, the other side, the Satanists, the Luciferians, the black church, the black circle, the black Cersei, the Cersei of shadow, the congregation of the shade. They deal with a lot of necromantic arts. And so you can find yourself on the left-hand path if you divest too much time and energy in it in your research. And should you go into practicing it without getting the full understanding or having a full foundation yourself, you can end up being re-dead. I know that sounds wild, but you can end up being re-dead. I don't mean literally dying and coming back, but you can die in so many aspects of your life. You get too caught up on the dark path, you start finding out that a lot of your gifts may have been connected to the right-hand path and connected to light energy and light force and brightness and love and compassion. You start getting rid of all that. All of a sudden, you ain't hospitable no more. You may not write the way you used to. You may not draw the way you used to. You may not communicate the way you used to. You just keep re-dying in different areas because you're embracing death without life, not triggering the balance. Much of Stephen King's material deals with helping a person navigate if they should even investigate or find themselves on the left-hand side, because it deals with a lot of dark subject matter. But so that's Pet Sematary. I think the toddler ends up dying too, and the father buries him up there in that same field, burial ground. Be careful about dealing with other people's ancestral groups, because those groups can be very offended if you should offend them in certain ways according to what they believe and practice, and they can really get at you in some very dark ways if you're not protected, because you would be walking in on somebody else's burial ground, somebody else's landmarker. You do have scriptures in the Bible that says do not move an ancient boundary marker, which is to say don't spit on anybody else's tradition, don't disrespect it, because you're going to be subject to the kind of forces and channelings or whatever the case, or just straight up mobbing of who they are and what they're about, possibly. So this movie delves into that. This is Pet Sematary, spelled Sematary, because I believe children wrote it, because they dedicated that to where all their dead pets went, and they buried them all there. So that's it in a nutshell. Have that balance to keep yourself from re-dying. Speaking of St. Paul, another gem on St. Paul, contributing to the dark reality behind him, Paul said, I die daily. Paul said, I die every day. Remember, he was a Pharisee. It was his job to look for Christians and have them killed. He was literally having people killed based on a belief system. And this is before the Maccabees, so we're not talking about a belief system that was engaged in war or harm either. We're talking about the Christian side. So he ended up dealing with some cliphotic energies because his balance was off. So he ended up, even after being representing the cause of Christ, he was still finding himself dying every day. So be careful, guys. And balance between life and death. Use death energy only when it's time to cancel something that's not working out for you. You can use that energy to banish and eradicate it. But make sure you cling on to that life energy as a main sustainer for growth and expansion.